Welcome to Washington Exec's video series. I'm Amanda Zieda, senior reporter with Washington Exec, and today I'm joined by Gary Slack, who's the CEO of XLA. Thanks so much for joining me today, Gary.
You bet. Glad to be here.
So today we'll be continuing our conversation about the impact of the coronavirus pandemic on the government contracting industry, as well as the way it's changing how GovCon may do business in the future. But first, Gary, I understand you had your own experience with coronavirus. You contracted a mild case from a cruise earlier this year. What was your experience like? What do you want people to know about the virus?
Sure. First of all, I was fortunate. I had a mild case. The biggest bit of advice that I can give to people is that if your body is telling you something different from a symptomatic standpoint than normally what happens with a cold or flu or something like that, listen to it. That's really what happened with me is, the trigger of losing taste and smell without a fever, without a cough, was something that normally I wouldn't have paid attention to. But because that was so different for me, that made a difference. So, the virus is sneaky and unforgiving for those that let it go on too long. So please just make sure you pay attention to those things. But if something's different, contact your doctor.
And you're fully recovered now? You're all good?
Fully recovered, lots of energy back, and back to my old self. So
Wonderful.
good to get through it.
Wonderful. We're really glad to hear that.
Thank you.
Yeah, of course. So, moving on a little bit, what I wanted to ask also what procedures and policies that XLA put in place at the start of the pandemic to keep employees safe and employed.
Sure. The one thing that we did is based on our experience in 2019, whereby we were heavily impacted by the shutdown, whereby our folks couldn't work from home. They weren't deemed essential in a lot of cases. And it really was disruptive for both our business and mostly our employees because, they were without a paycheck or had to take leave that, they were short on. We actually, in February timeframe, started going to all of our clients because I thought, okay, let's not repeat that. Even though the pandemic hadn't been announced yet, I wanted to see what the aptitude and attitude was for telecommuting, which all of our contracts require contractual modifications to allow for teleworking. They had to get computers, they had to get PIV cards, all the things that some people that do it on a regular basis take for granted. We didn't have in place because our clients typically didn't do that. So when the pandemic did come in mid-March, and by the end of March, all of our folks were working from home. So we really didn't miss a beat from those that, could work from home. There were probably a handful of folks that remained at client sites out of, our workforce, less than 10%. And we took the precautionary measures and understood the process and procedures and protocol for each of our client sites when we did have to take people and have them sit at a customer site.
And I understand you have a small HQ team, as most, like you said, are on the client site. But how has the pandemic and its impact on you and the industry in general changed the way that you plan to do business going forward, or your mindset about having people in the office?
I think most of us figured we have too much commercial real estate that we probably don't need as much of. It's kind of a throwback from, when everybody was working in a corporate site and felt like they had to be around one another. But it's actually changed my mindset, even though from a perspective of a company, we were moving towards more telecommuting. And that was brought on by, the need to be competitive from a recruiting standpoint, the need to be respectful and responsive to our employees' needs in, certainly in the Washington area, whereby, commuting was becoming a real problem. To get the right talent, they were coming from, farther away. So we've taken the approach to have our headquarters as more of a hoteling type space, and we will make it going to the office an exception as opposed to the rule. Now, from a standpoint of how long that will last, for the foreseeable future and even post-pandemic, I think it will continue that way because, we just have found out that a lot of people are actually much more productive working remotely. It's not for everybody. There are a faction of our employee base that have multiple roommates, have distractions at their home and aren't able to have a home office or a space whereby they feel comfortable working every day. For those people, as it has been through this pandemic, there's an option to go into our office. Our real estate company and property manager is very receptive to taking on people coming into the building, cleaning up after them. And as long as we notify people that they're going to be there that day, we can take the proper protocols in order for them to remain safe and feel comfortable. But, it's awkward. We've had some certain situations whereby, two of our employees have gotten there unannounced and, they've kind of frozen in front, longtime, colleagues are all of a sudden afraid to, make three moves forward or two steps back. So, we've kind of taken that out of the equation going forward, and I think it will go a long way to making sure that one, we're able to get the right workforce, and people understand it's up to them as to how they use the space. And it's up to us as leaders to make sure that their performance is what matters as opposed to the time spent in an office.
Certainly, and we'll be following the industry as we do reopen slowly. So thank you for sharing that with us, and of course, thank you for sharing your experience. We're glad you're doing okay, and we hope to see you in person soon.
I appreciate that very much, and you guys are appreciated for what you're doing and keeping us in touch with one another while this is all going on. So thanks to you and JD and the whole team down there at WashingtonExec.
Of course, thank you so much.
All right, thanks, Amanda.